Hello everyone, welcome to Prepper News. By your request, after putting a poll out on the community, this is the kind of content you want. We're not going to do this all the time. We're not going to become one of those channels. But this is one of the news updates that could affect the way you prep. Now, this is new to me. I've even put a shirt on for you, and I've made all my notes in front of me. So if I look like I'm down reading and I can't read my own writing, I apologize in advance, but we'll muddle through together. So, breaking news today is Visa and MasterCard payments have gone down nationwide. Widespread issues are reported this morning with Visa and MasterCard users when it came to trying to pay for anything. Over 600 plus people flagged the issue on the website Down Detector. This has been ongoing since about 7 a.m. this morning. This should have sparked alarm bells amongst our community, I'm sure, when talks of cashless society ongoing. It shows how brittle this is when a major supermarket chain such as Sainsbury's are putting up cash-only signs. Now, what's interesting about this sign is it's not done with a marker or handwritten or done on the fly. It's pre-printed, almost like they're expecting it. So this tells me, if nothing else, and without a conspiracy hat on my head, that Sainsbury's are somewhat prepared. But for what? It's believed that not just contactless, but all customer payments, including cash withdrawals, have been affected. In some cases, people could still withdraw cash, but many of the machines outside the supermarkets that weren't accepting card were obviously empty of cash by that time. We don't know whether it was a hack or whether it's some sort of glitch in the Visa system. Currently, the only post on that is them denying that there's any problems in their system, but clearly there is. So we'll continue to monitor that situation. Make sure you've got your notifications switched on for the channel. It might be a short, it might be a community post, but if we find out more, we'll certainly let you know. Next up, we're going to talk about UK crossbows. There was a crossbow triple homicide in the UK, and the suspect, Kyle Clifford, has been captured by police now. The victims are named as Carol Hunt, who is the wife of BBC commentator John Hunt, and two of their three daughters, Louise, who's 25, and Hannah, who's 28. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and friends at this difficult time. Of course, this has sparked fresh debate around the laws surrounding crossbows in the UK and whether they should be under the same licensing laws and gun control as firearms. The Crossbow Act 1987 makes it illegal to buy, sell, hire, or possess a crossbow if you're under the age of 18. They're also illegal to hunt with as well under the Wildlife and Countryside Act of 1981. In addition to these laws, it's also in place that if you're found with one in public without a reasonable excuse, you may face max sentence of 4 years in prison. What a reasonable excuse is not listed, but obviously it would have to make sense. Going shooting targets, etc., on the way to or from the range, just purchased it, and so on. The Home Office has been quoted recently saying there was only 10 deaths between 2011 and 2021 with crossbows. When used as a weapon, it does pose a risk. Now, this statement's pretty obvious, right? If something's used as a weapon, obviously it's going to pose a risk. The Office for National Statistics, in the year ending March 2023, for 1 year, there was 244 people killed with a sharp object, 101 of these of which were regular kitchen knives. 114 people were killed by kicking or hitting, so literally bare hands. And 379 pedestrians were killed by cars. Just some of the statistics. So in perspective, while we do not wish any of these tragedies on anyone, we cannot simply ban everything. We cannot ban cars. We cannot ban kitchen knives that we use to prepare our food. And we simply can't ban people's hands and feet. The new Security Minister, Dan Jarvis, has been quoted of saying the Home Secretary will look very carefully at the evidence, very carefully indeed. But what's the agenda behind this? This could be a quick and easy win for the current serving government. Banning crossbows only affects the minority negatively, but to the masses, they can sell this as making our streets safer. So I fully expect licensing or outright ban to come into play before the end of 2024, because it will look good on them to the masses of people, and the small minority of us that it affects, that doesn't matter to them. How to prepare for this is quite unclear. Many people believe that if you get a license or apply for a license after the fact, so for something you already own, it'll be a much simpler process than applying for a license to then purchase something, because you do not have to justify the reason for the purchase. You already own it. This is all speculation at this stage until they come out with their final verdict. Evidence has been gathered. It was all done in April of this year, but obviously this book has been passed to the new government, so we are waiting to see the results of it. NATO recently launched a video. This video, some people have referred to it as NATO propaganda, if you are that way of thinking, and some people just see it as a nice video celebrating 75 years of the NATO agreement. What is interesting is at one point in the video, "Glory to Ukraine" is stated. As we know, Ukraine is currently not a NATO member. In the recent summit in 2023, allies reaffirmed that Ukraine will become a member of NATO. It is currently under constant review, and security reforms as well as conditions need to be met first. But how will Russia see this, though? Well, right now, we have done everything to support Ukraine apart from officially putting fighting boots on the ground. Many of the measures taken, including the UK just giving permission to strike Russian targets with British armaments recently, could be viewed as an escalation in the eyes of Mr. Putin. I believe many things are keeping this at bay at the moment. Self-preservation from a political standpoint is a major factor for Putin. Without undeniable escalation, he would not be able to justify expanding this conflict beyond Ukraine, both to his administration and to his people. This doesn't mean we're out of the woods yet, with even the mainstream media, Sky TV, stating in an interview recently that World War III will be on us before the end of 2030. As we know from mainstream media to say this, something they would usually avoid, then that seems like an inevitable point we may reach. Now, it's all about time. How long have we got? We don't know. But it's time to prepare as individuals and as a nation. With all this said, I don't think personally this would be a global scale nuclear conflict due to the ever-present threat of mutually assured destruction. I hope I'm right, but I could be wrong. I'll prepare for the worst as always, but hope for the best. Everything with the UK defence and armed forces is yet again up in the air. We see a complete shift of the political climate in the UK. After recent election, we can expect to see schemes such as Rishi's national service be lost to the ideas of days gone by, and everything back under review. The new Labour government has known supporters of decommissioning the nuclear deterrent in the UK, even though they've claimed they support it. So let's hope, as a prepared nation, this is taken very seriously, and the people that do want to decommission it are not listened to. Towards the end of Rishi's months in the office, we've seen prepping take more of a mainstream place in the media, with brief stints in news outlets and on morning TV programs when the government launched their Prepare campaign website. As you may know, I did my own take on this advice, and there's a series of videos on the channel discussing this. But even a bit of advice is just bringing it forward and getting people who usually wouldn't think about prepping starting to think about it. It can only be looked at in a positive way initially. How Labour may change this yet is unclear. They've not mentioned anything to do with preparedness. We've been unable to get a comment on this, and we have asked, but we'll keep a close eye on the campaign to see if it gets any worse, or the advice gets any better, or it just disappears completely. Security Minister Dan Jarvis says our commitment to NATO and the special relationship with the USA is unshakable. We've got to be incredibly careful for the retaliation from Russia, and it is an illegal invasion of Ukraine, and we stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine. Again, reiterating that relationship with Ukraine that on paper is not official because they are not part of NATO or part of that alliance, but basically saying without that paperwork, we are still with them in this conflict. He said the British Army review would be a matter of months and not years. However, top brass in the armed forces say it could be done in 6 weeks. Now, these are the experts, so why is it taking so long? And the Labour government have committed to 2.5% GDP on spending for the British Armed Forces, but are yet to give any sort of timeline. Even on Sky News interview, when Dan Jarvis was questioned about this and pushed for a timeline on several occasions, there was never one given. Closer to home now, the cost of living. So we've all seen the prices going up, and of course this affects us as preppers. When we are still at the stage of storing up supplies or circulating our current stock, you don't have to have been prepping for very long to realise that a can of chili that cost you £1 last year costs you £2 today. With that, we await to see the budgets that come out in this new Labour government and to see how they're going to take money from us hardworking people now and potentially give us little to nothing back. And what's more, being reported today is an insult to injury by the water companies across the UK talking about increasing their prices on an average of 21% per household. Southern Water are leading the charge on this with a proposed increase of 73%. Scary when not that long ago they were telling the whole nation to run the tap and wash your hands, singing happy birthday 2 times, 27 times a day, running water the whole time. So maybe it's time to put our thinking caps on and fight back against another utility provider taking every penny we have and forcing us into poverty £1 at a time. It's never been a better time to look at self-sufficiency as a prepper. Whether it's recycling a lot of water, gathering rainwater and using that, filtering your own drinking water, whatever you can do to reduce your water usage and possibly put your water onto a meter rate could save you a lot of money if you do it right. And of course, a news report would not be complete without a weather report. But I'm not going to tell you it's raining again in the UK because we all know it's raining again in the UK. Our weather report on this news channel is always going to be the space weather because solar monitoring is something we do. We've seen a few weeks of heavy sunspots, but relatively calm on the solar flares. This image may seem big and scary, but the actual activity that's involved is not that high. The big sunspot in the center, AR3738, is quite impressive in size, but the actual activity that's going on within it, we've only had a few very low-end M-class flares over the last few days. This would usually, something of this size, this would be usually at the point where we go live with solar monitoring, but I can assure you we are still monitoring it, but till it becomes any sort of threat or active, we won't be going live with it. Of course, the sun is highly unpredictable, and within 2 full years of sunspots without a single sunspotless day, it's certainly looking like the most active it's been in a long time. If you're like me and preparing for something like the Carrington event, which there's much more details in the video linked, then you'll know we can go from absolutely nothing to total disaster in the blink of an eye. It can simply happen that quick. Now, we can see it happen that quick, as in there's no flare, all of a sudden there's a flare. However, the effects on Earth can be delayed. It can take a couple of days for a CME to impact the Earth. If it's much more powerful, something like the Carrington event, expect it in 8 to 12 hours, depending on solar winds and different conditions. This means, even if it's something that took down our entire grid, that we should have enough time to go live and tell you about it and throw up warnings and do whatever we can. This is obviously not for the income because we're not going to get advert revenue, but we will definitely use our last couple of hours if something like that happens to get on here and tell you all about it and quickly tell you how to sort out your Faraday cages and answer any questions you have. Another good reason to make sure you're subscribed, You hit the bell notification and make sure on that bell notification you drop it down and you select all. Then you can be sure never to miss out on that, because you never know when that could make the difference. That's it for our first ever news show. I can't wait to see your feedback in the comments. We will only report on things that are verified and accurate. Usually the end of the show would end with your news. Anything that you've emailed over to me that we deem newsworthy, we will put on as a little viewers reporting section at the end. I've left it off this week to give you time to email that over. Now, make sure if you do email me some news footage or news content, please let me know in the email if you wish to remain anonymous, if you wish for the video to or image to be used or not, and if not anonymous, what you'd like your name to be referred as. It can be your YouTube handle, a social media handle, or your actual name. So please make sure you add them details for us, otherwise we won't be able to use any of the things you send us. Thanks for watching the Prepper News. I've been Mike, the UK Urban Prepper, and we'll see you in the next one.
City lights go dark, streets are bare. Solar flares ignite the air.